There are great Pokemon with great abilities. See Gliscor, which was already a beast before Poison Heal, then rocketed into the stratosphere upon receiving it. There are great Pokemon that functionally have no ability, but don't need it. See Keldeo, whose justified attack boost for switching into Dark-type moves does absolutely nothing for it. There are great Pokemon completely reliant on their ability, like Medicham, who draws all of its power from, Cure Power. There are average or worse Pokemon who are elevated to higher viability because of their ability, like Torkoal. And then there are bad Pokemon that have great abilities, but are so bad that even their abilities can't save them. Those Pokemon are what this video is about, and we've done our best to make the choices interesting and not just the most obvious examples that come to mind, though of course certain obvious examples are obvious for a reason and must be given their due. So join us in exploring bad Pokemon whose great abilities didn't help. Rayquaza would be a ferocious threat in Ubers even without an ability, but its weather-ignoring airlock lends it another superb dimension of utility. From its ability to shut down weather-boosting sweepers like Swift Swim Kabutops and Sand Rush Excadrill, to being able to spam fire moves without having them weakened by rain, and many more such applications, Ray is a tremendous weapon in the weather-infested miasma of Ubers. Now here's the fun part. Airlock is functionally the same thing as Cloud9. OU metagames have been dominated by weather ever since Tyranitar Sandstream stepped into full 386 play in the advanced generation, and so have many low tiers for that matter. Obviously, the Pokemon packing Cloud9 aren't going to be on par with Rayquaza, but the ability to negate weather is a massive one in tiers so strongly influenced by its power. So why don't we see more such strategies? Well, the idea has certainly been contemplated by many a player frustrated with Weather Wars and how they so challenge the indomitable human spirit, but it's been dismissed as an inept choice for such a struggle, and rightly so. Not because the concept is bad, but because the bearers of the ability themselves are so decidedly underwhelming. It's a combination of different factors, given how different all four of these Pokemon are, but the through line between them is that their middling to bad stats relegate them to lower tiers, which are generally less affected by weather. Or in the case of DPP UU, Altaria, its ability to ignore rain doesn't do much in the face of Swift Swim Kabutops and Ludicolo, who are looking to Stone Edge or Ice Beam its lights out anyway. The same goes for its place in Advanced UU and failure to handle Rain Dance Amistar. Using these Pokemon is widely considered gimmicky, at least as far as handling weather is concerned. Again, it's not just in the higher tiers where their stats can't hang, but also in the lower tiers more likely to be populated by hail at one point or another. Golduck, Altaria, and Drampa aren't doing much in that regard. When these Pokemon are used, it's by and large because they are decent in their own right for the tier they find themselves in. They're listed for this video because we're judging them by OU standards where they are in fact terrible, but speaking very broadly, they err on the bulkier side. Their offensive output ranges from acceptable to decent, or very powerful in the case of Drampa. They've got some useful typing and moves, however what's particularly amusing is that they have other abilities that wind up being more useful thanks to the lack of weather in their respective tiers. Altaria absolutely revels in the many uses of Natural Cure, even in Gen 6 where its Mega Form sees use in OU. You're not Cloud9ing anything, while Licky Licky loves being immune to taunt through Oblivious when it's packing a defensive Wish set, and Drampa loves the special attack boosts of Berserk or the Leech Seed immunity of Sap Sipper. Funnily enough, Golduck is actually meant to be a weather abuser itself with its other ability, Swift Swim. On the subject of Golduck, we must at least mention its singular unique place in Advanced OU, as the only time Cloud9's anti-weather antics really managed to make any sort of splash in standard play, and it wasn't actually anywhere close to any sort of actual splash, more like a solitary raindrop you acknowledge hit your arm but didn't actually do anything about. Golduck's niche in the tier was that since its Cloud9 meant it wasn't affected by sand, it wasn't beholden to leftovers, and thus could run other items, specifically Slackberry, which allowed it to basically act as an offensive Calm Mind Suicune that could also boost its speed, be it through Substitute or Endure, which let it either threaten the opponent more effectively or check something like Aerodactyl in a pinch. Golduck was no Suicune of course, but being able to ignore sand was enough for it to be acknowledged by the advanced player base, which stands as the greatest accomplishment of Cloud9 and OU to this day. Overall though, the incredible potential of the ability that thwarts the powerful effects of weather is wasted on subpar Pokemon. Here we've got a 2-for-1 deal, a good ability in Compound Eyes and a great ability in Tinted Lens, both on a Pokemon which simply cannot use them to good effect by virtue of its many faults. The 30% accuracy boost effect of Compound Eyes is much appreciated by players and Pokemon who know all too well the frustrating inconsistency of missing moves in crucial moments. Galvantula and Vivillon have used the ability superbly, with the former able to wield quite a reliable Thunder for Electric Stab, a unique trait for an Electric to be able to upgrade from Thunderbolt, while Vivillon's Quiver Dance boosted Hurricanes go to waste much less when bolstered by the ability, and its more consistent Sleep Powder allow it to grab those Quiver Dances in the first place. Tinted Lens, on the other hand, enables spammability of raw power and how it nullifies resist. Many a lower tier have been ruthlessly blasted apart by Choice Specs Yanmega's ferocious Bug Buzz when unresisted by Fires and Steels, while Gen 9 has seen low kicks use the ability to repeatedly make an excellent first impression. Enter Butterfree, which has both abilities and possesses other primary features of two of the aforementioned Pokemon. The Vivillon and Yanmega it shares typing and stabs with. It's got the Quiver Dance and Hurricane of Vivillon, so it can run pretty much an identical Compound Eyes set. It's equally powerful, with its downside being that it's much slower at base 70 as opposed to Vivillon's 89, but with the upside of greater special defense, making it more difficult to revenge kill on the special side after a Quiver Dance boost. If you don't think that sounds significant, well, you never had a powerful Draco Meteor bounce off of a boosted Volcarona before. This set, by the way, gets used in Gen 8 Anything Goes. It's not meta-defining, but it does have a niche. However, Butterfree doesn't have to just act as another Vivillon. It combines its amazing Quiver Dance Hurricane deal with Yanmega's Tinted Lens, a boosted Hurricane you can't resist. That's a thing of beauty. Sadly, Butterfree comes so close to finding something. It's got the unique combinations, the possibilities, but it's just too damn weak and frail, with some of the most exploitable typing in the game, and thus fails to make use of either ability, as evidenced by its untiered status in Gen 8, though again, funnily enough, it also had the slight niche in Anything Goes. Even if Butterfree had been released in Gen 9, where it would have been helped further by terrestrialization, the sleep ban would have rendered its Compound Eyes set useless. You're not going to run the ability just to increase Hurricane accuracy, but even still, Tinted Lens is the better ability. However, even that won't be enough, even though it's now helped by terrestrialization pushing the power of those Tinted Lenses field stabs further, while also making its typing less exploitable. Yes, that all sounds grand, but Butterfree simply cannot live up to the potential Tinted Lens offers. Our evidence for this is that Vivillon is currently untiered. For all the neglect Butterfree has suffered, it's not for a lack of a useful ability. Aftermath is an underrated ability only seen occasionally on Skuntank, but being able to rip 25% off of an opponent upon being made to faint by a contact move is not only much more than you usually get when you lose a Pokemon, it's also an excellent way to punish your opponent for doing exactly what they're supposed to do, i.e. fainting your Pokemon. You can turn the tables beautifully on physical attackers this way, especially paired with Rocky Helmet. Now take Innards Out, which pushes this concept further. When an opponent faints an Innards Out Pokemon through direct damage, they take damage equivalent to that which they dealt. So if your Innards Out Pokemon loses its last 200 HP, it's dealing 200 HP to the opponent. Oh, and it gets better. Whereas Aftermath is restricted to contact moves, Innards Out has no such limitations. Whether it's Earthquake, Draco Meteor, or Floor Cannon, should it faint the Innards Out user, the effect is going off. Of course, you can pair this with Rocky Helmet, or you can even choose to punish special attackers further with the little-known Roap Berry. Even if you're not accentuating Innards Out with your team though, it's an amazing ability that lets one turn the tables on just about anything threatening. A blessing in our beautifully power-crept modern times. Yeah, Iron Valiant is scary, but as soon as it gets that KO, it's going down too. This is an amazing tool to keep such beasts in check. So here's the issue. Innards Out is exclusively an ability of Pyukumuku. Okay, that doesn't sound so bad. After all, Unaware Pyukumuku was a popular sight on many a Gen 7 OU stall team, stifling dangerous boosting sweepers thanks to its enormous base 130 defenses. Surely this is just another role it can fill. Its inherent qualities must be good if it's such a fixture on OU stall, right? A pure water type with those kinds of defenses, that's gotta have something to it, especially with such an impactful ability. It sounds all well and good, but here's the catch. Pyukumuku's base HP is awful. With full investment, it comes out to 314 HP, which is, well, below average. That sounds pretty good, as shredding 314 HP off of an opposing Volcarona tier threat is usually going to be more than enough to get the job done. But you then realize that this is a a very optimistic scenario. Something like Dragonite has 9 more HP than Pyukumuku without even trying. Plus, Pyukumuku's Great Bulk actually works against it. It's rarely going to be taken out from full HP, and as soon as it dips to a range where it's going to be KO'd by things, that percentage may be 60%, but the actual number is much lower than you'd like. It will almost surely be less relative to its opponent. Plus, here's the real issue. Pyukumuku exerts almost no pressure on the opponent. The reason this is offset with unaware sets is because it sits on so much repeatedly for so long that it can afford to mess around with PP stalling sets. It becomes much more limited when it cannot do this. Innards Out would be an amazing ability if it were on a Pokemon that had other use. For instance, look at how great Skuntank is. As good as Aftermath is an ability, it's a bonus. Skunktank's purpose coming into games is not to let itself faint for 25% chip against physical attackers, not immediately anyway. With Innards Out on something as unthreatening and low HP as Pyukumuku, it's entirely a waste. You're better off using Ditto if you're going to dedicate an entire team slot just to bring down a difficult to manage opposing threat, since Ditto can at least do so repeatedly. Or you could bring Unaware Pyukumuku. Innards Out thus far is pure lost potential. Of all the wasted abilities, this one really rankles because the concept is so well thought out, and it almost could not have been given to a Pokemon less suited. Under Sun, a Flower Gift Pokemon receives a boost to its attack and special defense, and in doubles, the same for its ally Pokemon, which is even more stunning. But of course, the Flower Gift user being so worthless prevents this from ever taking off there either. The concept is so great because the dual-pronged boost is specifically tailored to assist physical attackers, which are historically vulnerable to special attacks. With Flower Gift, they not only become stronger under the sun, but they are no longer nearly as vulnerable to getting picked off by a retaliatory Ice Beam. This would be perfect for another grass type introduced in Gen 4, Leafeon, who already possesses a predilection for sun boosting through its Leaf Guard ability and access to Synthesis. Its high attack would love the additional boost to its Leaf Blades. The instant threat of a Choice Band set would be quite a force, and assuaging its low special defense would be a boon as well. One could Assault Vest to drive this idea further, or use Swords Dance alongside a Resist Berry to really make it tougher to take out. Leafeon did not receive Flower Gift though, nor did a similar Pokemon, Sawsbuck, nor did anything else except the Pokemon this ability was designed for, Cherrim. Okay, but that's fine because Flower Gift also changes Cherrim's form. Hey, that's cool enough for a signature. Oh wait, the Cherrim Sunshine form is purely an aesthetic change. It has no impact on the battle whatsoever. Well, unless you're playing on the cartridges and send it out during the infamous Acid Rain glitch, in which case it will transform back and forth between its two forms forever. Anyway, point being, Cherrim Sunshine is equally useless in Sun, even with the boosted attack and special defense. Cherrim's stats are so nondescript, it makes you wonder if it actually exists. They're not even outright pathetic or anything. Its worst is its attack stat, which, well, given that that's the stat that Flower Gift is meant to boost, it really makes you wonder if Game Freak didn't instead mean it to boost its much higher, though by no means high, special attack. Base 60 attack isn't getting it anywhere, even with decent speed and workable bulk. And even upon receiving the powerful and also sun-fueled Solar Blade in Gen 8, we're not saying this is an ability that needs to be given to Kartana or something, but good Arceus, give it to something usable, at least, because as it stands right now, Flower Gift could give Cherrim an immediate +2 attack, maybe more, and it'd still be completely worthless. And before we get to our last section, we have to give an honorary mention to those trapping abilities who A, possess a reach so vast we can't really dive in depth without giving them their own video, which they arguably deserve, and B, don't quite fit because despite being bad Pokemon, the abilities are so good that they launch these Pokemon into viability anyway. Kind of a reverse example, as these are amazing abilities on bad Pokemon that make the bad Pokemon actually useful. Wobbuffet, a Pokemon that literally can't damage the opponent of its own accord, is excellent in Gen 4 Ubers, for crying out loud. And why not isn't even allowed in OU either. Really, it's only Magnet Pull Probopass that fails to make an impact, which makes it most appropriate for this video, but it also has the trapping ability with the least range. Give it Arena Trap and watch it shoot through the ranks. Yeah, it's slow, weak, exploitable weaknesses, yada yada, it'd find a way. After all, Gothitelle got Shadow Tag banned from Gen 5 OU, and it wasn't just a Gothitelle ban, it was a Shadow Tag ban as a whole, because otherwise the player base would happily replace it with Gothorita, just as they did in Gen Gen 6 OU. Similarly, Arena Trap is banned across the generations because once Dugtrio was off the table, Diglett was getting the job done. Yes, Diglett. Meanwhile, weather ability support capabilities make them similarly obvious, though they of course aren't as out and out absurd as the Trappers, in that they don't quite launch the off-mediocre Pokemon they're given to stardom, especially after the weather they set was no longer permanent. We can see this in post-Gen 5 Politoed, whose viability crumpled despite the still amazing power of Drizzle. As for Simple, it's quite an obvious choice. An ability that doubles your stat boost is going to be utterly crazy on anything at all decent, which is surely why they gave it to Bibarel, who remained unviable even after receiving Swords Dance. If +4 attack in a single turn won't save ya, nothing will. We certainly thought about using it for our final slot, but ultimately we didn't, because we of course had to go with... You could not get a more obvious choice for this video. The very concept is perfectly designed for it. As surely as Hollywood will jump at the chance to churn out awful remakes, reboots, and sequels, we too were guided by destiny towards honoring the ultimate gulf between power of an ability and lack of power of its user. Though in the case of this ability, it is of course by design and has become renowned for its disparity. Shedinja bells were undoubtedly ringing in many viewers' head as soon as this video's title's meaning were registered by their eyes and brain, as Wonder Guard is simply that stunning an ability. Complete immunity to every move that isn't super effective is as absurd as it sounds. In fact, the only reason it doesn't seem as absurd as it is because we know it is safely restricted to a Pokemon with typing that leaves it no shortage of weaknesses. And of course, exactly 1 HP, meaning it is immediately one-hit KO'd by Sand and Hail, Hazard, Status, or Leech Seed. Even still, it's such a powerful effect, and we try to make it work. Many have crowd over Shedinja's ability to completely and utterly walk Kyogre, leaving out the fact that it can't switch into the Big Blue Well as soon as Stealth Rock goes up. In newer generations, one can run heavy-duty boots to ignore hazards, and while some could run safety goggles to protect themselves from Tyranitar's Eternal Sandstorm that also KOs Shedinja upon switching in. But that leaves you without the Focus Sash that was Shedinja's previous safety blanket. It survived one Fire Blast or whatever, which meant you had to hit it twice with a super effective attack, which in an ideal scenario would allow Shedinja some leeway in its elusive playstyle. Whichever item you go with, it's a nasty bunch of poisons to pick between, especially since Shedinja, as a Pokemon of mediocre power and unimpressive move pool, isn't exactly doing much in return. Yes, if you blank everything the opponent has in store, you don't need to dish out immediate damage, but seeing as how the bug ghost typing leaves it with plenty of weaknesses to incredibly common attacks like Knockoff, and even the Focus Sash ignoring Magma Storm, this doesn't do much good, especially since it also is so easy to sidestep the actual weaknesses with the residual damage that's also so common. It's best that this ability is limited to such a gimmick though, because it is truly busted beyond belief. Maybe Game Freak can have some fun with a Shedinja evolution that's basically the same, but it has 2 HP instead of 1, just to let us know that they know. And of course, we must mention that this is strictly for singles. In VGC, Ally Switch Shedinja is incredibly obnoxious. You try to hit its partner, and instead it's replaced with something that blanks you completely. This way it leverages its Kyogre walling perfectly, making it a terrific choice for restricted VGC metagame. Though we must emphasize that this boom in Shedinja use didn't happen until Gen 7, when Shedinja actually received Ally Switch. Shedinja is just like Ditto in that it is a bad Pokemon, but has a niche when the tier is run by only a few Pokemon. In this case, it would be Kyogre, but outside of a restricted meta, Shedinja does not appear, so you could argue that it's terrible. But we will leave that up to you. And that's it. Of course, there are many other potentially viable selections for such a list. We tried to make ours a little varied, but it's also true that there are many different variations of this video's concept, which we're sure to return to in the future. Let us know if you agree with our assessments and which Pokemon we might have left out that we should cover next time. Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos, and thank you to everyone else watching as well. And thank you so much to our Platinum patrons. Thank you to Amphozenus, Alex Sable, Anthony Belval Renault, Bingleton, Daniel Is Beast, Dr. Mint, Funky, Glitcherton, Howl, Nurse Jake, Jack G, Lord of the Rabbit, Pretzel SP, Raven Daytona Ring, Ray Ray, Skylaria, Soares and Croxon, Shiwei Miji, Stoneface Colin, and Quetzalcoatl Northropi for their major support of our videos. and follow my currently social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.